Welcome to Challenge the Stats, Patreon edition. EDH Rec is built on the stats that make up the Commander format, but sometimes those stats might not represent what's best for a deck, and our patrons have some secret tech in their decks they want to share with all of you. One card that they think sees too little play for their favorite commander, and one that perhaps sees too much. This week's challenge is brought to us by Jack, who has some tech to share for their Neera Wild Mage Wild Magic Bonanza deck. Challenge the Stats is sponsored by Ultimate Guard, and for being featured in this video, we'll be sending Jack some Ultimate Guard swag, including Ultimate Guard's excellent katana sleeves, which Joey, Matt, and I use on all our decks. Now let's get to the challenge. Neera Wild Mage costs 6 mana, 4 a blue and a red, for a human elf shaman who's a 2/7. Neera reads, whenever you cast a spell, you may put it on the bottom of its owner's library. If you do, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a non-land card. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost, then put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. This ability triggers only once each turn. Jack's choice for overplayed cards in Neera Wild Mage decks is Harmonic Prodigy. And the reason Jack says is because Harmonic Prodigy cannot double the triggers on Neera. Harmonic Prodigy is a human wizard, a 1/3 for 1 and a red that has prowess, and it reads, if an ability of a shaman or another wizard you control triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. She can only trigger once per turn as long as she hasn't left and came back, so Harmonic Prodigy doesn't double her triggers. There are some wizards and shaman on her page, but the amount with triggered abilities on her average deck list is less than 6, and 29% of decks have the card in their list. It's a card that assists less than 10 cards in the deck in that case, and never your commander. And as a note here from me, Harmonic Prodigy is a very good card, but I absolutely agree. If it's not doubling your commander's triggers, then it's way less consistent than I would like from a card in my deck. Now for underplayed cards, Jack thinks Inferno should see more play. Inferno is a 7 mana instant from way back in 8th edition. Costs 5 and 2 red and reads, Inferno deals 6 damage to each creature and each player. Jack says it's a big spell for any card that cares about mana value, like Volcanic Visions, Ovika, or Shark Typhoon, all of which show up in Jack's deck, and it wipes most things off the board. The cool part is that Neera has 7 toughness, and many of the big baddies you may cheat in have more. This can totally swing a game in your favor, and it doesn't run the risk of wiping away your expensive commander like Blasphemous Act does. 147 of Neera decks, which is basically a rounding error, are running this card, and I'm sure it can be higher than that. Yeah, one-sided board wipes are fantastic in almost any situation in Commander, and like Jack noted, this oftentimes winds up being almost a one-sided board wipe in this deck. Cards like Ulamog the Infinite Gyre and Ancient Silver Dragon in Jack's list completely dodge this spell. Taking out your opponent's stuff and not taking out your stuff is very, very powerful. Thanks for suggestions, Jack. If you want to see even more cool tech, you can find Jack's Neera Wild Mage deck linked in the video description below at architect.com. And if you'd like to have your deck and secret tech featured here on Challenge the Stats Patron Edition, head over to patreon.com/EDHRecast to sign up. Thanks again for those suggestions. Thanks for supporting the show. Thanks to Ultimate Guard for sponsoring Challenge the Stats. And thank you for listening. And remember, EDH Rec your deck before you wreck your deck.